When Inter Milan reached the Champions League final in 2023, many people rightfully wondered how on earth they managed it. Whilst they would eventually succumb to a 1-0 loss on the day to Manchester City, the magnitude of their achievement shouldn't be lost on us. A major reason for their success has been their manager, Simone Inzaghi. In this video, we will discuss how Simone Inzaghi is changing attacking football and altering our perception of how defenders can be used in attacking phases. We'll also discuss their incredible form in Serie A and their unique approach to the transfer market. This is why Simone Inzaghi is a genius. Alright, let's talk about Simone Inzaghi then. Harry, what do you think of Inzaghi?
Yeah, I think he's a very, very good manager. I mean, as a bloke, he looks like a decent bloke, but as a manager, I think he's a very, very good manager, very, very successful manager. You know, especially with Inter in the last few years, it's been success every year, really. Yeah. And to be honest, they've been unchallenged, at times during.
Other than when Napoli, obviously, won the league.
But at times, they've had years where they've absolutely stormed it. I mean, this year is probably one of the more notable. But...
I'd say this is their most comprehensive year, definitely. But let's talk about his honours then. So currently top of the Serie A. He's been very successful in the Serie A. 2 Coppa Italia titles. 3 Supercoppa titles. That's a lot of trophies to have won. And, of course, finalists in last year's Champions League. I think that came as a shock to a lot of people. But when you break it down, I think their run to the final last year made a lot of sense. Now, obviously, they did have a weaker run to the final than most. But they were merited in being there, weren't they?
Yeah, they were very, very good. And this is what Inzaghi has shown he can do. He's a very, very good manager tactically. And we know that Inter are very consistent when it comes to league form. But you look at that final you look at how they got to the final last year. You also look at, as we talked about, those Coppa Italias, those Super Coppas, and the way Inzaghi can get his team to play for one certain game, to perform for 90 minutes in that knockout format is very impressive.
They're set up very similarly to the Jose Mourinho side that won the Champions League. Is that a sign of things to come? Does that bode well for Inzaghi? Who knows? But I do think that they are, as you say, very good over one match. They have that tactical ingenuity to be able to beat pretty much any team. And it does look like they'll get into the Champions League quarterfinals. Now, of course, this video goes out after, or maybe the day of, I think, actually, the Inter Atleti game. So join us for that this evening. But that could be very interesting, I think. But let's talk about what Inter are doing then. And a lot of this actually comes from that game in the first leg of Inter versus Atletico, because we're watching it live. And there were some really interesting things they were doing in possession, out of possession, that really intrigued me. So the first thing I would say about this Inzaghi side is that it's a perfect blend of function and style. A lot of teams you see that are very defensive, very good pressing units, it's horrible. It is horrible to watch. But when they get the ball down and play, Inzaghi's system isn't, let's get the ball quickly into attacking areas like they were a bit last season. It's get the ball down, let's play some nice football. And there was a really nice moment for the Arnautovic chance, 62nd minute, I want to say, something around that sort of time frame. Just before his goal, there was a lovely exchange. They won the ball back on the right-hand side, and Pavard had it, and they switched it round to the left. A lovely exchange of passes, end up flying down that left-hand side, ball comes into the box, and Marko Arnautovic spoons it wide. But that was a real demonstration of how Inter can completely open up teams with their passing play.
Yeah, and I think, as you say, it is a good mix. You have your the back three, they can play some good stuff, but they are your typical big, no-nonsense centre-halves who just get the ball gone and get rid of the danger.
But they have that, but also that ability to play with the ball at their feet.
And then they could play that ball into a midfield three, which is full of flair and creativity, with Barella, Mkhitaryan and Çalhanoğlu in there most of the time across, the last couple of years. And their 3 players, they don't play ugly football. I've never seen Çalhanoğlu play ugly football. He just can't do it.
And we'll touch on all of those in a moment in a bit more detail. Let's talk about the team as a whole, though. They're a great pressing unit. That's quite obvious. They're really good at progressing the ball. They have a transitional threat. But they're also really good at breaking teams apart in the final third. They've got loads of solutions in there. And we're going to talk about one of those in a moment. But is it just a perfect system? What beats it?
I mean, it's a good point, because it's got a bit of everything, in terms of it's got different personnel that all work together, but tactically it has all got a bit of everything. And it's quite an interesting mashup, because it's one of those where I think Inzaghi's done so well to get it to work. Yeah. It's a very difficult one to get right when you have so many different components. It's a very well-oiled machine going on, but it's also a very complex machine that has to be managed superbly. And
it's very, very difficult to create a system that is both very aggressive in attack, very dangerous and very difficult to deal with, but also incredibly defensively solid. And he seems to have found that equilibrium where they just meet that perfectly. They're a great attacking side and actually very, very dangerous, and yet they seem impossible to break down. And we're going to talk about one of the reasons they do that through advancing wide centre-backs. Now, you might remember, fans of the Premier League, a certain Sheffield United side coming up in 2021, I want to say, 2020, around that sort of time, and playing a mental system with advancing centre-halves. And they ended up finishing 8th in the Premier League or something around there. I think they almost got Europe. There was that Sander Berge period where they're all going, oh, he's going to get us Europe. He didn't. But they did really well that season regardless. They're bringing ball back. And they're bringing ball back in a very big way. So you've got Bastoni playing left centre-half and Benjamin Pavard playing right centre-half. Now, immediately, you notice Pavard in there, a bit more of a right back. And I think that does pay dividends for this Inter side, because it does mean he can roam forward. And both those centre-halves are given licence to roam forward. So when they're in a possession shape, when they're in the opposition's half, those centre-halves can make those runs just on the outside of that midfield. They're given licence to roam there and really attack the box. So it makes it very dangerous, because you've got a player that you cannot account for running into the penalty area, running into dangerous areas and causing a lot of problems.
Yeah, because as you say, no one's going to follow that man. No one's going to mark him.
The striker isn't chasing after him, is he?
Yeah, especially in the case of Bastoni and Pavard, the size of to have a person of their size to be able to make very good runs, but also do really well with the ball at their feet is incredible. You can't. If Bastoni runs at you, it's very hard to stop him without bringing him down.
Yeah.
You know, that is a very dangerous weapon and a very big surprise to some teams. You know, if you see this centre half come marauding forwards.
Well, yeah, it can be done in two ways. Of course, you can either have the centre half carrying the ball forwards, and this is created by Inter having a very narrow midfield. So Çalhanoğlu, Barella and Mkhitaryan at times sit on top of each other almost in the midfield. It draws that midfield of the opposition midfield to be really narrow, and it gives that space on the outside for the centre half to make the run, either with the ball or without the ball, just to get into space. Obviously, as I say, progress that ball up the field, and that does make it very, very dangerous. So let's talk about that midfield. First of all, I want to talk about Hakan Çalhanoğlu, because what Inzaghi has done with Hakan Çalhanoğlu is nothing short of extraordinary. So throughout his career, Çalhanoğlu started on the left wing, also as attack midfielders, transferred between those two roles throughout his career. Very creative player, very attacking player, has an absolute wand of a right boot, and is a fantastic footballer. But what Inzaghi has done, given his lacking pace or deteriorating pace, has turned him into a deep-lying playmaker. And it's revolutionary for him. He's looked a completely different player this season, Çalhanoğlu, who's starting to lose his touch a little bit. But this season, after the departure of Marcelo Brozovic, and a lot of people looked at Brozovic leaving for Saudi Arabia and thought, well, hang on, they've not signed any replacement here, Inter. What is going on? And I think quite rightfully so, because they don't have a defensive midfielder in their team. However, Inzaghi created a defensive midfielder, and actually it suits Çalhanoğlu so well, because in there he can conduct the play, but he's also been very good at putting in some tackles this season, upping those numbers. But predominantly, he's that ball-playing midfielder. He gets the balls out wide, and with those wing-backs, he can really spread the pitch, or he can play balls in behind for very fast attackers like Lautaro Martinez, Marcus Thuram, Arnautovic, and Alexis Sanchez. Less the last two, but more the first two. So, very, very dangerous player. And then the other feature of this system is very unorthodox positioning, because naturally, with your centre-halves running forwards, they don't just have Stefan de Vrij sat there on his own going, well, this is fine. The meme, oh, this is fine as the house is burning down, because that's what it would be. Instead, they're very careful about how they do it. So if Bastoni was to rush forward, you'll notice Hakan Çalhanoğlu drop a little bit deeper, Di Marco drop a little deeper, and you get that same sort of diamond shape where De Vries slightly deeper, Çalhanoğlu slightly further forward, and your two centre-halves are sat in line. It creates that diamond shape, makes it very compact, very good rest defence as that centre-half roars forward, and the same for the other side where Matteo Darmian will come in, or Denzel Dumfries when he's fit will have to play that role as Benjamin Pavard makes that bursting run. So clearly they're very, very good at that, using that unorthodox positioning, because obviously when the attack comes to an end, they've got players scattered. But what they've done really well this season is that counter-press, swing that ball back quickly and not making it an issue, because it could be an issue if Bastoni's got to track back 50 yards because the other side are coming forwards, but Inter's counter-press has negated those issues majoritarily, and a lot of that comes from the midfield. Very tenacious players like Nicola Barella, Hakan Çalhanoğlu, and Henrik Mkhitaryan. And that seems to be the big thing about this side, because a lot of people have said, oh, well, it's a load of players who weren't really good enough in the Premier League even 5 years ago. So how have they changed that? How have they done that? How's Inzaghi done that, Harry?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really intriguing prospect because, as you say, they are players that didn't really cut it a few years ago, and it looks like on paper it's a midfield composition that shouldn't work at all because you look at those three players and go, they don't work together as a midfield. But
even on FIFA, people will be like, hang on, that's way too aggressive.
Exactly, and Inzaghi has kind of taken the strengths, or maybe the now becoming weaknesses, as you mentioned, Çalhanoğlu's declining pace, and he takes those weaknesses and strengths and he plays to the strengths.
And neutralises the weaknesses.
He's dropped Çalhanoğlu deeper, which cuts out his weakness, which is his declining pace, but shows off his strength, which is playing with the ball. Because
an incredible passing range.
Exactly. And he's done that towards Mkhitaryan, who again struggled in the Premier League, but plays really, really well.
Even at Roma a few years ago, he looked completely off the pace, and they picked him up on a free. And I think that's another sign from Inter is their incredible business in the transfer market. Benjamin Pavard, obviously a bit of an exception to the rule. They actually bought him for some money, but the rest of their players tend to come in on frees or loans with options to purchase later in their contract. So they're very smart about how they go about their business, and I expect that to continue. I mean, you look at deals like the loan deal for Romelu Lukaku, and now obviously he cost them the Champions League, but he was still a good player in that season, and it's great business from Inter, and they've done really well to recover from obviously their owners having a huge financial hit when the pandemic hit. So they've done very well, Inter, and I think a lot of that goes down to Simone Inzaghi. One final thing, I think their midfield actually perfectly represents their side. They're very fluid on the ball, but off the ball, very effective. And I think that summarises Inter Milan quite well. So let's talk about what they can achieve this season. So Serie A, you would imagine, is wrapped up now. I'm going to get up the table just to get an exact understanding of where they are. They sit top. They are already, I'm just doing the maths, 18 points clear.
They've won the Serie A.
So with 10 games to go, that seems to be wrapped up.
Loss
they can afford to drop. They can lose most of the games left in the season. They'd still win the title. So they're in a really good position. As you say, one loss so far, only 4 points dropped. No, more than that, but you get the
5.
Only 4 games where they've dropped points. So still good stuff.
No.
And still wrong. 9 points lost.
Yeah.
Still very good season. Given the strength of the league, I know they've been helped out by like Napoli's fall off this season and their complete inability to play football apparently, but still a very competitive league. Inter have been incredible. Even at the weekend against a very good Bologna side, they claimed a 1-0 win in that one, and I think that's a testament to how strong this Inter team is, because Bologna, you might look at them and say, it's only Bologna. They're 4th in the league at the moment. We could do a whole video on them because Thiago Motta's doing some really interesting stuff there as well. But Inter went to their place, beat them 1-0. Great stuff from Inter. They've now not lost a game of football since the 20th of December 2023. That was in the Coppa Italia. They were knocked out by Bologna. They've not lost their only league loss coming in September to Sassuolo. Sure, they'll be a bit annoyed by that because that was like a winnable game. But they've not lost. In fact, they've won every single match in 2024. Will they keep that up tonight? Probably so.
Yeah, probably. I mean, we spoke about how strong Inter are without even mentioning Lautaro Martinez. And,
it's incredible.
And that says a lot. But that it is because, and I'm not, obviously he is a world-class forward, but all the cogs in the machine, their outcome, the result of that is his numbers and his ability to score.
I guess because tactically there's not a whole lot to say, but I mean we can look at the fact that from 14.6 expected goals, which is the highest in Europe, for 14 ranks in the 99th percentile for that, he scored 23 goals, which he also ranks in the 99th percentile for. That is ridiculous. An overperformance of 9, they are Haaland-esque numbers. And that denotes that if you put him in a system like the Manchester City system, where Haaland gets so much more XG, you would expect to see a huge output from Lautaro Martinez. Now, obviously, the league is of a lower quality, but I don't think that you should take anything away from Martinez. He's been incredible, and even in the Champions League this season, he has notched up 2 goals. So, good stuff so far.
That's where Martin and Outwish been shining.
I was going to say,
man.
and
this is, again, I think this shows how well Inzaghi's doing, the fact that they had an Outwish on the pitch for the last 45 minutes, and he scored. Because what happens is, because all the tactics, all the creation, everything happens behind the front two, which means the front two get the chances, Because Arnautovic could have scored a hat-trick in that last game.
He should have.
We were laughing at him because he kept missing easy chances after chance, and we were slagging him off, and then he scored.
Eventually.
But that's what
But even that
all the
one
work,
fell to him, didn't it, after another person's attack?
all the work happens behind the front two, which means the front two can then notch up the numbers they do, and Lautaro Martinez can shine as well as he does.
Yeah, I want to talk a bit about inter-season in a moment, but first I want to ask, do you think there's a little bit of an over-reliance on Lautaro right now?
Potentially so, especially when you look at who his striking partners are, and there's a little bit...
Well, 23 goals for Lautaro, 10 for Marcus Thuram isn't bad at all when you consider he's only played 1,900 minutes. So, 26 matches, that's not anywhere near as much as Lautaro. Obviously, his XG, though, is only 3 points off Lautaro, and his goals are 13 off. So there is a bit of a difference there. However, I don't think that's necessarily too bad. Thuram's never been known as an out-and-out striker. Another player that Inzaghi has moulded into fit this system. Obviously, more than capable of playing there, but not naturally a striker, usually a winger. He's done very well with that. With clubs looking at Lautaro this summer, though, do they have an issue, Inter?
I think they do, but if he keeps up his form to the end of the season, there'll be a high price.
I was going to say, I think you could possibly get 100 million.
Maybe 109. Yeah, I'd probably say close to 90. I'll say 90.
Okay.
But you can do a lot of 90 million. We know how good Inter's business is. I mean, they've already bought in Zielinski on a free at the end of the season, right?
Yes, that's already done.
They're already starting thing like next year. Adding Zielinski to that midfield is incredible. Yeah. But I'm sure...
It feels like another identical footballer.
Yeah.
Someone who's never really done anything outside of the Serie A.
Come in and at class.
Yeah, exactly. And I think he will play very well in that. But yeah, they'll have to focus on replacing Lautaro if that does come to a head. Do they just go to Argentina and find another striker? Right. I'm sure they can find someone in the world football landscape. Yeah. Maybe they could even look within their own league if Joshua Zirkzee was to become available at Bologna. Could be a perfect replacement given his Serie A experience. So for Inter, the rest of the season, we imagine the Serie A is wrapped up.
Yeah.
My other question is, how far can they go in the Champions League? So currently they're out of 16. I think they'll probably get it over the line against Atletico tonight. I know Atleti are very good, but I think Inter is slightly better.
And Inter already 1-0 up. That's what they need.
Yeah.
For me, I mean, why can't they do what they did last year? Go all the way. They got to until
they didn't go all the way. They got almost
final though. I do not the saves from Edison towards the end.
The misses from Lukaku.
You know what shirt he was wearing, and he weren't playing for City. I honestly think they gave Man City. Everyone thought that'd be a walk in the park for City. Inter gave them a game and a half.
Yeah.
What is stopping Inter going to get into the final again?
Drawing Real Madrid or Man City in the course.
Why can't they beat them?
No, I think they go because they can't finish their chances with the Lukaku.
I think they can give both those teams a good go.
Yeah, I think so, but it very much depends on the draw. If they were to get a PSG, I'd back them, I think, to win that game.
The winner of PSV or Dortmund.
I think they could win that. I think they probably beat Bayern right now, because that Bayern team, I know they won 8-1 at the weekend, but they have been an absolute mess this season, and Lazio wasn't a comfortable victory for them.
But equally for Inter, I think they beat Porto or Arsenal. I think they beat Napoli or Barcelona.
I don't think they beat Arsenal right now.
Well, Arsenal will beat Porto first, so Arsenal do that.
Arsenal will probably beat Porto.
You guys already know how to beat it, but you never know.
And then Inter against Napoli Barca, you'd back them. I think the only big issues for Inter would be a City or Real draw. Yeah. Understandably so. I think obviously Bayern's still a tough game. Arsenal's a very difficult game, but it's winnable. But I do think Inter could get semis this year. It very much depends on the draw, of course. If they draw PSV, that should be a guaranteed semi. If it was even Dortmund, that should be a fairly easy pass to the semis. So very much depends on the draw, but I do think Inter have the ability to get to the semis, maybe even the final if they turn up in that semi-final. So Inter, very, very strong team. Yeah. Let's see how far they go in the UCL. But they've pretty much wrapped up the Serie A now. So the UCL is the only other trophy they can claim. Yeah. But that is everything. As I say, join us this evening for Atletico Madrid versus Inter Milan. Should be a really interesting game. We'll be covering it from 7:45. If you're watching this much past that, then unlucky. You've missed the stream, but you can always go back and watch it if you really want to. So you'll know now whether Inter are through or not. But that is everything from us today. If you want to keep watching our content, there's going to be a video covering Harry's face right now. I know, rejoice. You can go and watch another one and keep enjoying the content. But that's everything from us today. Thank you guys very, very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.